Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning indeed. We begin worship the same way every Sunday morning with number 188 in your hardback hymnal, or maybe written on your heart. It's also going to be on the screen up here on our slides. We sing it twice in English, and then we change the key and sing it in Spanish. So I invite y'all to rise and bow to your spirit as you're willing and able, and join us in Come, Come, whoever you are.
Good morning. And here we are at the hybrid service of Second Unitarian Universalist Church of Omaha. We bring our message to the west side of Omaha, Nebraska, and to the world through Zoom. We are here to learn about and commit to living the 6 values of Unitarian Universalism: justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, and generosity. We welcome everyone here this morning. We bring a teaching of hope. We bring a saving message. We welcome all through our doors, the joyful, the heartbroken, atheists and Christians, pagans and Buddhists. We welcome people of all gender identities and all sexual orientations. We welcome all who are searching, seeking, looking for more meaning, more service, more love. All of us are gathered here together to walk each other home. Our Soul Matters theme for the month of November is Nurturing Gratitude. My name is Chris Peters, and I'm serving as your worship associate this morning, along with our settled minister, Reverend Juniper Meadows. I'd also like to acknowledge those of us who came out on Friday night for our fireside Samhain service, led by Juniper. Cold temperatures and hot beverages brought us all together in the warmth of community. And as our first act of worship, I'd like to invite everybody to stand and greet the people you see around you. Sarah will open the gallery view in Zoom, so our remote members can also join the conversation. And I would like to invite Tom Peterson to light our chalice this morning. The chalice is our common symbol that unites our Unitarian faith. We light our chalice today with these words. Today we light our chalice for those who came before us, our mothers, fathers, abuelas, abuelos, and all whose names are whispered in love. As the flame rises, we remember that death does not end the story. It only changes the language of our connection. En este Dia De Los Muertos, we open our hearts to memory, to laughter that still echoes, to songs that still hum beneath the silence, to love that refuses to fade. May this light be our altar, shining with gratitude, bridging the worlds of the living and the dead. Bendecidos sean los que recordamos, and blessed are we who remember. Every week, this congregation recites a shared covenant adapted from the words of James Villa Blake. Sarah will share the slide for the English. Love is the spirit of this church, the quest for truth, its sacrament. And this is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, seek truth in love, and to help one another believe more fully in life. And because Spanish is a primary language for many people in our community, for the sake of inclusion, we also repeat these words in Spanish. El amor es el espíritu de nuestra iglesia, la búsqueda de la verdad, nuestro sacramento. Y esto es nuestro acuerdo que convivamos en paz, que busquemos la verdad en el amor y que nos ayudemos uno al otro a creer más en la vida.
Oh, we're losing stuff. Good morning, everybody. My name is Reverend Juniper Meadows. It's my pleasure to serve as your subtle minister here at Second Unitarian Church of Omaha. I'm a tall, curly-haired woman in a multicolored robe made by this congregation, and a stole, the Luna moth, and mountains, and the chalice made by my internship congregation. And I'm just so thrilled to be with y'all this morning as we lift up El Dia De Los Muertos and All Souls and set aside a time to reflect upon the forces of endings, the forces of death, and life, for they co-inhabit this world together. One is not possible without the other. And so, to begin this entry, I invite us into a moment of stillness and groundedness. You might find yourself in a position that feels comfortable for you. Maybe your legs are crossed, that's okay. Maybe your feet are on the floor. As long as you are comfortable, that is what matters. You can soften your gaze or turn your attention to the chalice if you like, if that helps. Anything to ground yourself in the space and calm the mind and the anxious stirrings and buzzing of the week. There's just so much going on. Here and today, let the lights go low upon these happenings and turn inward towards breath. You take a deep breath through your nose and hold it for a second and then give it back. How many breaths in a life? Some more than others. But these breaths are ours. Atmospheric chemistry left, inherited by us, that we may sustain this action, this event, this experience of life. In this time of All Souls and Samhain and the day to honor the dead, I invite you to consider those ancestors who have made your existence possible. Call a few to mind. Who are those who loved you and lifted you into being? Complicated souls, simple souls, all the souls that made you who you are, and flesh and bone, and these things we hold on to for just a little while. Who are you calling into the space today? And of course, we are not only brought into being by our families of blood, but also those families of spirit and inspiration. Who are those friends? Who are those souls you may have never met that nonetheless have made you who you are? Call them into your heart and into this space. These generous spirits who have loved us and lived us into being, may they be honored. May their story continue in your story. And may all of our stories be woven together into that greater tapestry of humanity, threads both dazzling and dark, great and small, all form one wider web of life to which we are all a part, always and forever. For death is not an end, but a transformation into something new, some new patterning, some new way of being, leaving behind breath, stories, possibilities, you and I and all that lives today. May they live within us, as us, and through us. May we honor them with our being and our presence in this life. El Dia de los Muertos, or is it La Dia de los Muertos? El Dia, thank you. All over the place with how I've written it in my sermon today. You know, friends, isn't it funny when life imitates art? I think that's really interesting when some artistic expression results in some new way of being in the world. Mexico City did not have an El Dia de los Muertos celebration until 2017. And why? Highly likely the 2016 James Bond movie Spectre had something to do with it. It opens up in a big Dia de los Muertos celebration in Mexico City, but at the time of this movie's release, the city had never had such a festival. The following year, they had a parade that was big and well attended and likely drew a lot of inspiration from Spectre. This isn't to denigrate this at all. It is good when we can draw inspiration and find cause to celebrate things, right? The movie Coco also had a big role in the common understanding of a Dia de los Muertos, a massive box office success, bringing attention to it all around the world, all over the world. El Dia de los Muertos is celebrated on the 1st and 2nd of November, so here we are. It's a time to keep the deceased alive, more common amongst working class folks in this sort of typical traditional veneration. In urban centers, it's kind of a party. In my studies, I've seen people who both resign to accept, and also can be a little frustrated with the way it can be celebrated in major urban centers. But ultimately, despite these urban influences, these modern influences, it has tremendously deep roots. It's sort of a hybrid ceremony. It blends a Catholic and indigenous cosmology and these various practices around death. These death ceremonies that involve the veneration of ancestors and also the worship of death deities were central to many pre-Christian indigenous peoples to the Mexican subcontinent, not only to the Aztecs, but also the Maya and the Mixtec. Ancestors might be called upon to aid in daily life or offered items like incense or food in these times, and today as well. In the pre-Christian era, it was not uncommon for indigenous communities to have particular days of the week or even whole months dedicated to these rituals and gods. Prior to the Spanish conquest, the Aztecs held most all of the modern month of August as a sacred time for veneration of their death goddess, Mictecatzihuatl. My Nahuatl is not very good, so I'm going to do my best. She presided over the underworld alongside her husband, Mictlantecutli. I did it. It probably surprises none to hear that the Catholic Church strove to dismantle such indigenous practices, suppressing the veneration of these deities and moving her month from August to November to coincide with the standing Catholic liturgy of All Saints and All Souls. The departed play a direct role in the spiritual life of many everyday Mexicans, particularly around El Dia de los Muertos. And so the day is often celebrated by visiting cemeteries and grave sites, cleaning markers, and placing ofrendas. Ofrendas like a ritual altar, this living prayer that's meant to call in and honor deceased loved ones. You might have photos, you might have candles, marigold wreaths, and snacks. All these go beyond simple decoration and become ritual, devotional expressions. The popular calavera de azúcar, these candied skulls that you may have seen or heard about before, are made and inscribed with the name of a loved one and then eaten to remind the participant that death does not have necessarily this bitter end, but is characterized by its own kind of sweetness, this continuation of natural cycles of life, an idea that runs counter to many of our Western ideas about death and dying. This is not, of course, to say that it's all fun and games. There is a bittersweet melancholy that is melded to joy. In our Western cultural context, we often imagine death as a force of negation alone. But here we find death meeting life, not to consume and deny, but to bolster and inspire.
One feature of rural observances is this certain solemnity and local specificity. The celebrations tend to be more private. They're embedded in family and extended family networks and regulated by the indigenous community norms and elder-led traditions. In some rural areas, celebrations are mostly solemn, whereas in bigger cities, as we mentioned, they are sometimes a little on the irreverent side, a chance to party and dress in culturally inspired neo-Gothic garb. But because these rural communities have often long histories of indigenous identity, the memory of ancestors is woven into this fabric of place and location. Common offerings might be things like locally grown foods or handmade crafts, personal objects tied to the deceased's livelihood. And so the cemetery becomes a communal space of memory and relationship, a congregation of all souls, the living and the dead. In recent decades, Dia De Los Muertos has transcended its national borders and become a cultural ambassador for Mexican identity across the world. For Mexican and Chicano communities in the United States, the holiday serves as both a spiritual and a political statement, a reclaiming of cultural heritage and a rejection of colonial erasure. You have artists and activists and educators that have used Dia de los Muertos to honor victims of violence, systemic oppression, and social injustice. And we know that these are burning hot today. I heard that ICE was in South Omaha just on Friday. Oh, Lord. UNESCO, though, has recognized this as an intangible cultural heritage of humanity that way back in 2008, before we had their festivals in Mexico City. This affirms its significance as a living tradition that continues to evolve while maintaining this core message that death is not the opposite of life, but it is an inseparable part of it. Underlying this time, and it would seem many such times set aside for such rememberings, lies a worldview that sees existence as a web of relationships between body and spirit, and past and present, and human and nature. It invites participants to confront mortality not with fear alone, but with this deep and personal sense of reverence, a sort of wonderful, colorful joy, despite the dour trappings that death can often bring. Such a radical affirmation of interconnectedness, and that those who came before us are in fact not gone, but accompany us still in memory, in story, and in these ongoing flows of life. However we affirm this, whoever we are, wherever we are, whatever time it is, we're having the good time of celebrating our ancestors and remembering who wove us into being, reaffirming the sanctity of our own lives and the twin truths that love, once given, can never truly die, and that we and all others live connected inextricably to that wider web of life, stretching even through those silver mists of death. Here in Nebraska, we don't often give death her due, do we? It's impolite to speak of, certainly to fixate on, not very Nebraska nice. Maybe we don't want to believe that death is for everyone. Certainly not us as individuals, right? Not for those we love. Because it's so hard to say goodbye. Saying goodbye is always saying hello to another time in life when someone isn't around, a time when we have to learn how to live anew in spite of all that has happened. Respectfully, mindfully, we might have a thing or two to learn from such a cultural expression that gives us cause to reflect on those from whom we come from and those who come before them. For such reflection, such reverence surely leads us towards the shape of life, the web, the tree, the spiral arm of our own ancient mother galaxy, full of beginnings and endings, full of transformation. Honoring grief and the real loss we experience, may we also come to honor death and these dear endings for what they are, necessary transformations, a move into another state, possibly of spirit and certainly of matter, returning to that baryonic sea of cosmic stuff waiting to be breathed into something new, into something different. And here, friends, excuse me. Well, here is the end of my reflection, pardon me. I'm going to step aside and let Chris come up for a moment.
The theme for stewardship this year is celebrate. This month we are focusing on the loving community we share at Second Unitarian. Karen Brown will share her thoughts about loving community through the gift of coming home. Karen.
I've never done this before, at least not here. I don't have any notes, so hopefully I don't ramble too much. I wanted to just share my thoughts about how I wound up here at Second Unitarian. And it all started, if we go all the way back to the beginning. I was born in New York City and moved to Southern California as a 5-year-old. And we were the first of our families to leave New York City. Everybody was there. In fact, I still have uncles and cousins that are still in the neighborhood that I was born into. And we didn't have any friends. We didn't know people. And I was raised Jewish, and my family found a synagogue and joined and became very active. And there we found a family. There we found a home. And yes, there was a religious aspect to it. It was more traditional religion. We were not Orthodox by any means. So it was really more traditional. It was getting together with other families over the holidays. It was camping trips together. It was vacationing places together. It was weddings and bar mitzvahs and parties and you name it. It was just, these are people that I grew up with and are still my friends. Okay, I went to one of my friend's daughter's wedding in Atlanta last year. And I'm Aunt Karen. So these people are closer to me than my family. And I've always felt after leaving there, when I went off to college, that I lost something. I never felt like I had a home ever again. And I mean, I've tried all different things, and I've moved around the country, and we moved to Omaha, and I tried hard at Temple Israel. Oh boy, did I try hard. Spent 6 years there trying to feel comfortable and just never could. And I was my son was starting Hebrew school to study for his bar mitzvah, and because I worked during the day, he had to go to the night program, and the night program then required parents to go. And so I was there, and we had a teacher who said, if you don't light the candles on Friday night, you're not a good Jew. That just laid into me. My grandparents are immigrants. My grandmother lost her entire family in the Holocaust. They sent her to the US before to get her out and keep her safe. Okay. I couldn't handle that. That just, you can't tell that to a person. So we started looking, and my husband at the time looked at a bunch of different Christian churches, and I knew of Unitarian, having had friends when I grew up that were Unitarian. Our rabbis, this is one of the reasons I guess I loved that congregation so much growing up. He would do pulpit shares with the Unitarian minister in town. And so that's the kind of congregation I grew up in. It's actually very much like this church. And there was no way that I could find a religious home that, first of all, told me that I was born into sin, that I was going to have to believe in Jesus and the Trinity. First, I couldn't even fathom that. I needed a home where I could be me. And we found it here. And it was wonderful. And so we joined the church back in 98, 99 timeframe. My kids went through religious school here. There's a lot of people out here who were their religious school teachers, or their kids, grew up together. And they still keep in touch via Facebook with their friends that they grew up with here at this church. And even though they've both moved away and they're not here anymore. And so they went off to college, and we moved out to the other side of town. We moved to Florence. Oh my God, that was so far away. Johnson's. There was no way I was going to come in here and drive in on a Sunday morning. I am not a morning person. And so I stopped coming. And eventually got divorced, and I needed to start taking care of me. And one of the things I needed was to get back into some kind of a religious organization. I needed that comfort. And I immediately came back here. And I came once, and I didn't come for another 6 months. And I came another week, and I didn't come back for, a while. And then it was Thanksgiving, and I get a call from Janet Nichols. Can you come join us for our Thanksgiving dinner? Guess who was here? Guess who helped set up the tables? I had been on the fellowship committee before. I knew all about it. I knew everything that had to be done. Okay? I found everybody I knew. So many of you are still here. And it was home. And that was it. I was home. That's what this congregation means to me. And I hope it means that to a lot of you as well. This is my house. The one thing that I have to share that I thought was absolutely beautiful was, I left for probably 6-7 years, didn't come. And the very first service, we started it by saying, love is the spirit of this church, the quest for truth at sacrament. And this is our covenant to dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to help one another believe more fully in life. I had been saying that for the prior 10 years before. We have been saying that same covenant for over 20 years. It's home.
Good morning. My name is Casey Horpedahl, and I have the honor of being the current chair of the board. And let's see, I use he, him pronouns. I am a tall man with, with dark hair and green eyes and glasses. I am here this morning because we have struggled for a while to find the right day when we could show honor to some of the great people who are a part of this church. But it is hard to find the time when everybody's here, when I'm here, and everyone's not here today, but that's okay. So this month we're talking about, stewardship theme is celebration, and I thought celebration would be an awesome day for us to talk about some really, really amazing people at this church. There are a lot of things that go on behind the scenes at our church, things you might not know about, important work that's taken up by willing volunteers who often receive little recognition for what they do. So for those of you who are unaware, there was an audit of our church that is supposed to take place every few years. And when done properly, this audit is a massive undertaking that examines every corner of the church, verifying and accounting for so much that it can at times be mind-boggling. And we probably know that there are some of us who, when faced with stressful, overwhelming work, we are tempted to pass it on to another group or to leave it to be dealt with at another time. I am incredibly grateful to our audit team for not taking the easier route. The adversity did not sway this fantastic team, which, if you did not know, was led by Kathy Bell. And those of you who know Kathy will not be surprised at all to learn that she did not back down. On behalf of the board and all of Second Unitarian, I would like to offer my heartfelt appreciation to Kathy, as well as to Karen Hux and Vicki Pratt, Anita Meyer, Rebecca Rossiter, and Erin Burbach, who has since moved but whose work and contributions will not be forgotten. Sherry Cody and Jamie Short also did a tremendous amount of work to help with this auditing. Can you please help me to thank these wonderful people? And so that you don't have to listen to me talk on multiple services, because you have other people who do that. I also wanted to mention that the recent installation of Reverend Meadows was a monumental day that was highlighted by thoughtful words, by beautiful music, by loving friends, by amazing decorations and food. And that day, a great many of us got to be privileged to a rare and spectacular event, one that will be remembered fondly for years to come. But let us not forget that it took contribution from a wide range of people. And at the heart of that was a small and mighty group of dedicated members of our beloved installation team. Through months of planning and effort, these wonderful humans showed insight, creativity, organization, resourcefulness, presence of mind, calm amidst chaos, and a willingness to do highly challenging tasks and persevere despite difficulties, including, if I might add, a new board chair who was sometimes more trouble than he was help. On behalf of the board and all of Second Unitarian, I would like to again offer my heartfelt appreciation, even though some could not be here today and Janet and Ashley are downstairs. Please know that Molly Clement Jenkins, Jamie Short, Ashley Fusen, and Janet Nichols served on this team. I'm told also that Aaron Burbach also helped on installation at earlier stages. And although he moved, we are so appreciative of his contributions. One more time, will you please help me in thanking these wonderful people? And please say thank you to them when they are back, because not everyone was here.
If you see Ashley downstairs, go tell her thanks. That was a really wonderful service. My goodness. This is just stunning how wonderful it was. We move into a time of altar building, a moment where you are invited to be up and around and about this space to make some meaning with the symbols we have arrayed around the church. I'm trying to find a good microphone. I'm just going to use these because I don't trust those two. That's fine. You can see around me, friends. I think many of you know how this works, and if it's your first time, watch your neighbor. You'll learn. So in front here we have a basket of flowers and stones, together because life's burdens and levities exist together in one life, in one body. If you feel so led, friends, I invite you to come and take a stone and hold it in your palm and feel its weight. Offer some burden you might be carrying to that stone, and when you're ready, place it in the vessel of water. You may also take a flower and keep it for yourself or give it to a friend. We have candles here if there's something you'd like to shine some light on. And we have all of these recreated in the back as well on that table as you came in case you're not too into being up here in front of people. I totally understand. Chris, can you open the box for the Book of Life and hold it up for people to see? Thank you. The Book of Life that Chris has here is for you to write whatever you like to, whatever you would like, friends. A prayer, a poem, a brief reflection. You can sign your name. You might stay anonymous. And friends on Zoom, the chat box is your chat box of life. Whatever is written in either of those two places, online or in person, will be shared in an extemporaneous prayer for the people following altar building. There's also, it's got a lot on it today. I don't know what was going on. I think the youth group were using our whiteboard, but that's also free if you want to doodle or draw or anything, friends, that's fine too. And we take our offering up. We have the box right beside the Book of Life because it's a sacrament as worthy of any of these, as worthy of any prayer. Chris, will you come tell us about St. Francis?
There he is again. This year's Sienna Francis House, our Share the Plate partner, is proud to celebrate 50 years of dedicated service to provide shelter, meals, and a pathway to housing for any individual experiencing homelessness in Omaha. Additionally, the organization offers residential addiction and recovery services through the Miracles program and permanent supportive housing in the Sienna apartments and the cottages. Last November, several church members participated in a guided tour of the cottages, an innovative housing arrangement. Social justice is the heart of our church, and every day we show up. Please do give generously to our Share the Plate offering to support Sienna Francis House and our church. You can mail checks to the church with Share the Plate at the memo line, or click the donate button on our website, toyouomaha.org. Those of you in the sanctuary can place your donations in our offering box or scan the QR code on your order of service. Thank you.
Friends, will you join me in that spirit of prayerful reverence as we hear these few prayers of the people and hold space for what is heavy and light in this life? Spirit of life, love, and all good growing things beneath the sun, we remain in this time of turbulence and uncertainty all around the world, possible wars brewing of our own nation's making, saber rattling, nonsense and noise and violence for its own sake. May we remember those words of Dr. King, which called us to be mindful of power, for power alone is reckless and abusive, but not to rely upon our easy feelings alone, for our love can be sentimental and anemic. We need both of these together to meet what ills this world, what ills our location. For there is so much need here just in Omaha. Masked agents, Gestapo-like, stalking people in South Omaha, people forced to live under bridges and in inhospitable conditions because they have nothing else, a Superfund site still there, people with PTSD in North Omaha. Give us the conviction and strength to be the ones who can meet these troubles, not solve them all, that's not for us to do alone, but to meet this world where it is with all of its needs and to be open-hearted in the face of it. This can be so challenging. This can be so hard to do, but we must understand that the antidote for the anxiety, for the fear and the trepidation in the face of all that needs to be done is compassion, lived active love in the world. Oh, we're in spooky season still, sort of. Interesting figure to share with you today. Controversial, for sure, although we're not particularly strangers to being controversial, are we? Imagine in your mind's eye, if you will, or just in your heart, you know what the Grim Reaper looks like. If you are somehow unfamiliar, a robed skeletal figure holding a scythe or a set of scales, maybe an orb if you're in one of those interesting stores. A personalization of the force of death drawn largely from medieval artistry. You are also imagining the artistic depiction of an increasingly common folk saint in Mexico and beyond, named La Santa Muerte, Our Lady of Holy Death. As we have named in common Mexican religious life, death is not merely an end. Indeed, for many, it is more of a companion, a counselor. And for over 10 million people, a living saint, or a folk saint, I should say, excuse me, among the many figures who inhabit Mexico's rich spiritual landscape. Few bear this striking connotations as La Santa Muerte, the skeletal folk saint of death whose devotion has spread throughout Latin America and into the United States. While Dia De Los Muertos publicly celebrates the memory of ancestors through art and music and communal joy, the cult of, I use that word cult not in the way we often use cult, I mean in the sort of non-sectarian religious studies way. The cult of La Santa Muerte represents a more intimate and ongoing relationship with death as a sacred presence. Together, these traditions illuminate Mexico's unique ability to transform mortality into meaning, fusing this indigenous cosmology and Catholic imagery and modern realities of survival and resistance, because these are all tied up together, especially with this figure. La Santa Muerte's spiritual lineage reaches back long before that Spanish conquest into Aztec religion, where death was not a malevolent force alone, but part of the cosmic balance. As we named earlier, Mictetzu, my Nahuatl is really bad. I wrote it out for myself earlier. Give me 1 second. Lordy. Micticatzihuatl. There we go. Goodness, Juniper. Learn your Nahuatl. Come on, right? Micticatzihuatl, the Lady of the Dead, rules over the underworld called Mictlan and provides over festivals for deceased ancestors. Her task was to guard the bones of the dead. Indeed, she is often characterized as being a skeletal figure herself. She ensures the cyclical nature and renewal of life. Now, when Spanish colonizers introduced Catholicism, indigenous devotion to death survived beneath a new religious surface. The Catholic calendar provided official feasts for the dead, All Saints' Day, which is yesterday, and All Souls' Day, which would be today, which would eventually merge with pre-Hispanic rituals to form El Dia de los Muertos. So you have a syncretic phenomenon happening over thousands of years of time. But there is this more esoteric veneration of death itself, personified as a saint in La Santa Muerte, even though this remained suppressed for a long, long time. It was not until the 20th century that La Santa Muerte reemerged in public. In 2001, Doña Enriqueta Romero, also known as Doña Queta, placed a life-size statue of the skeleton saint outside of her home in the Tepito neighborhood of Mexico City. This transformed a private devotion into a public devotional gathering. The shrine drew thousands of devotees seeking protection or healing or guidance, especially amongst the poor, the marginalized, and the criminalized, largely because this folk saint was said to work very quickly. And it's not a flippant thing either. There's serious spiritual connotations to the worship of La Santa Muerte. The scholar Felipe Gaitan Acla in Saint Among the Damned states that the symbol and metaphor of death have accompanied all civilizations through time and space. Life and death are inseparable. Life itself demands death as its opposite, that which enables the meaning of being and existing in the world. In eternity, life has no meaning, much less death. It would be nullified, just as falsehood is nullified in a world where everything is true. Therefore, the veneration of death is also a veneration of life. La Santa Muerte is a folk saint, not the only folk saint. It makes sense that there would be this sort of folk saint tradition in a heavily Catholic area like Mexico, where a lot of the saints enumerated by the church popularly lived very long ago, very, very far away. And so there are a number of folk saints that were canonized by the people in Mexico. La Santa Muerte is one of many, and definitely one that was never actually a person, but an idea, a synthesis between Mictezcuatl and popular depictions of the Grim Reaper from medieval art. You have this robed skeleton bearing a globe or scales or a scythe in different colored robes depending on purpose, resembling both at once the Grim Reaper and the Virgin de Guadalupe, the Mexican national patron, blending these elements into something at once new and familiar. Her devotees interpret her not as evil, but as neutral or even sometimes compassionate, as a manifestation of death itself, a being who listens to all, regardless of sin or social status. So she is invoked for protection, for justice, prosperity, love, vengeance, her robe shifting in color according to intent, white for purity and red for passion and black for protection and sometimes gold for success. The anthropologist Andrew Chestnut wrote Devoted to Death, and he describes La Santa Muerte as a mirror of Mexico's social inequity, serving those excluded from official religion, like sex workers and migrants and addicts and queer and trans people, prisoners, the desperately poor. To these devotees, she is a saint who asks no questions, a mother who does not condemn. Like death itself, she is impartial and inevitable, and because of this, she is trustworthy. La Santa Muerte represents a continuous personal devotion rather than a regular figure in an annual festival alone. Her altars remain year-round in homes and street shrines, and her rituals often blur a line between Catholic prayer and folk magic. Often she is spoken of in hushed tones, and yet her veneration is an increasingly public affair, especially in the diaspora here in the United States. During modern celebrations of El Dia de los Muertos, especially in urban centers, her image commonly appears alongside family ofrendas, particularly in those urban working-class neighborhoods where her popularity is strongest. Devotees might offer her cigarettes, or tequila, or apples, or flowers, or even marijuana products, gifts that parallel but intensify the traditional offerings to ancestors. The folklorist Stanley Brandis observes, Dia de los Muertos encourages intimacy with death, a familiarity born of humor and affection rather than fear. There's this sort of levity to Dia de los Muertos that may not be a partner to all observations and venerations of the dead. La Santa Muerte takes that intimacy a step further, making death not just a visitor, but a companion and even a protector. Her shrines, crowded into alleys and bus stations and barrios, stand in stark contrast to these state-sanctioned parades like we talked about in Mexico City, and these museum exhibits that might analyze El Dia de los Muertos from the outside, where the latter has been embraced by tourism and the middle class. Santa Muerte devotion remains extremely grassroots, stigmatized, and resistant. This juxtaposition mirrors Mexico's continuing broader social divide and our own in many ways. One tradition domesticated as cultural heritage, the other alive as a perceived dangerous faith. But the two often coexist within the same households. On these days, in this time, devotees may honor both their ancestors and Santa Muerte herself, acknowledging her as a guardian of the dead, much as the Aztec honored their guardians of the dead, an intermediary who helps souls across the void between worlds. In this way, Santa Muerte becomes an invisible officiant of the time, the one who ensures that the ancestors safely return home and depart again in peace. This is not a monolithic interpretation, by the way. There are so many variations and permutations to practice and veneration of this figure and of El Dia de los Muertos, so I don't have the last word on any of this. I'm a white woman in Nebraska. The modern visibility and organization of Santa Muerte devotion owes much to the work of Jonathan Legaria Vargas, known as by the really cool name of Commander Panther, Comandante Pantera, and his family. In 2007, Legaria founded the Templo Santa Muerte Internacional in Tuitlan on the outskirts of Mexico City. I think I mispronounced Toltitlan, excuse me. A shrine dominated by a huge 75-foot tall statue of the saint. His charisma and media savvy helped to transform Santa Muerte from this clandestine cult practice into a public religious movement. Legaria passed tragically in 2008, but his mother helped to carry on the temple and assume leadership. Under her guidance, it became a regular pilgrimage site for thousands who arrived to light candles and seek healing or give thanks for miracles attributed to the Bony Lady's intervention, as she is also known. Their temple established this formal ritual structure with schedules of mass-like ceremonies and public blessings. It's still going on today, and following his mother's death in 2018, her descendants continue to lead the temple. So there's a family affair going on here. Their leadership embodies a theological and cultural synthesis, death as both holy and familial, not abstract, but embodied in relationships of care and continuity. The Catholic hierarchy, you may not be surprised to learn, condemns La Santa Muerte worship as blasphemous or satanic, arguing that personifying death desecrates Christian doctrine. Yet this condemnation underscores the movement's theological radicalism. In a society marked by violence and corruption and class disparity, La Santa Muerte functions as a saint of justice and survival for some people, embodying what liberation theologians might call that preferential option for the poor. She's invoked for all kinds of things, from narco communities. Many people who've watched Breaking Bad may remember La Santa Muerte from Breaking Bad, but this is not the only way in which she is venerated. Complicated figure. Devotees see her as an unconditional mother whose embrace extends even to those rejected by church and state. So in this sense, La Santa Muerte transforms death from an agent of fear into a source of dignity and empowerment. During Dia de los Muertos, her presence reminds participants that death's power is not merely symbolic. It is social, it is political, it is real, it is coming for all of us. And for people who live close to death, police officers even, sometimes politicians, sex workers, all kinds of people, find proximity to this because death is near them all the time. It makes sense that it would take such a dominant role in their life that there would be this almost deification of it, right? It helps to make it make sense, helps life sting to be a little less grating. To decorate her altar for these folks is to assert that the poor, the forgotten, and the criminalized are also deserving of reverence. We find here a common theme, right? Death as relational, not adversarial. Through the juxtaposition of the holiday's colorful rituals and Santa Muerte's austere devotion, the living sustained bonds of reciprocity with those who came before and with death itself. Both traditions grow from an indigenous worldview that saw the cosmos as a cycle of transformation that merged with this Catholic iconography and folk practice. Dia de los Muertos celebrates this relationship through artistry, La Santa Muerte through petition and intimacy, and together, for those who observe both, they form a theology of sacred death that challenges Western taboos, asserting that even mortality can be holy, that love persists beyond decay, that the divine often wears the face of what we fear the most, the face of one at once a stranger and close as one's family. So many Western taboos which need a good challenge, right? Returning to our own context, could it be that reverence and respect for the powers of love, which is central to our living faith, would not denigrate the powers of death? How would love be known at all should we never brush up against the cold borders of life, those necessary rails upon which all must venture, that new life and new stories may grow? And what else but love and intimacy may salve such a wound? I recently lost a dear friend named Dustin Steele, real fire chaser, real change maker, the kind of guy who chains himself to mountaintop removal machinery to protect against the desecration of the land. Hit me like a ton of bricks, and I was fortunate enough to get to visit with his family and some of our friends in West Virginia this past summer, a time for stories, for celebration, and songs and shared sorrows. It is not really any easier, not yet, but it is more bearable a loss for the company of those I love. I imagine many of you have had some similar experience of being loved through loss, and should you have been denied such an experience, it's my most sincere hope that you find such comfort here. A little reminder to all that pastoral care is available around the clock. All you got to do is reach out. Folk saints, such as La Santa Muerte, emerge for many reasons, but most central must be the sense of familiarity, this familial, the familial feeling. It's little wonder that she would have such appeal to those who live on the margins of society, or to those stretched thin and worn raw in the halls of power, to those who may not have a family. Death rejects no one here, and while we most certainly aspire to a warmer embrace ourselves, do we not seek to model such a radical pluralism, a radical welcome, to be in our way a kind of family of faith? It's a hard charge, friends, but let us not reject death outright. Let us come to understand it as part and partner of the greater web of being, and even come its common ruinations, may we nonetheless turn our hearts and minds towards those who continue to give and strive in the midst of hardship. Where now is death's sting? Where, grave, thy victory? Few forces truly help the heart endure such common trials, save one for certain: love realized as compassion and the familial spirit. It is compassion that calls us into the plight of our neighbor, into the wounds of this world, to name the stranger kindred. Such love in action, moving as compassion, is both a source of healing for others and ourselves. Indeed, for millions of devotees of holy death, it is found even here in this figure which rejects none, should they come with an open heart and deep faith. While some faith leaders find cause to dismiss such expressions of spirit, I and many others see in this observance the realization of at least part of liberation theology's preferential option for the poor, a familiar face, a friend in the dark, one who will speak for you. However we come to understand the roles of saints and exalted figures, surely we all know what it is to want for a friend, a companion, someone somewhere to hang our worries out to dry and our flowers out to bloom. May the love you feel and the love that you are grow and deepen. May all of our ancestors smile upon these hearts so open to the world, so ready to ripen into love's demands. May we be the ones that we have been waiting for. And may we ever continue to turn to the helpers and to be the helpers these times call for. For one day we will all be ancestors ourselves. May our precious time on this precious planet never fail to leave love's indelible mark, and may those who come to claim us as ancestors do so with a smile on their face, a flower in their hand, and a story in their heart.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fires of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And our doxology.
Praise love from which all goodness shines. Praise freedom lifted to the skies. Praise the fires of the mind. Praise all the joy we've yet to find.
Prophetic Church, this world awaits your living, loving ministry of liberation. May you go from this place and be fools for love and pilgrims for justice, and until we meet again, may you rock, roll, and move towards that spirit of beloved community on the horizon. Go in peace.